Before continuing along this path, I think it is important to take a few minutes to reflect on the concept of God. Before I start explaining my definition of what God is, I ask you to put aside everything you knew or thought you knew about Him, even just for a minute, at least to understand what I mean when I mention the word God. It doesn't matter what your religion, beliefs, or culture are. All of us have been indoctrinated since our childhood to associate the term God with a meaning that does not really belong to Him. Because of this program, we can no longer think of the term God without associating it with the beliefs we were forced to study, so we have no freedom of thought or personal experience. We are mentally compelled to associate God with a kind of faith that does not belong to us. It is not our nature to be faithful to a punishing God, a God who gets rich by trampling on people's heads, a God who tells us to kill others. Actually, we are much closer to God than we are led to believe. We just don't know how to communicate with Him, so we cannot feel Him. Put aside what you have always studied about God and listen to what arises inside of you when you think of Him. If you think about the meanings that you have associated with the term God for all your life, so many conflicting and sometimes negative feelings will arise in you, almost making you think that you do not believe in God and that, if He really existed, He would certainly be an evil, punishing, and selfish entity. This is not God. This is the church. God is very far from the definition that they forced us to believe for all those years. So do not focus on the theoretical meaning you were taught about God. Focus on how you feel when you think of Him. The only way to detach ourselves for a moment from that negative meaning of the term God that they've planted in our minds like a nail is to stop using that word and understand what it really is. So many spiritual people, for a certain period of their journey, have felt within them that they no longer wanted to mention that term, so that it would be cleaned up and reprogrammed with much more positive feelings. Many spiritualists choose to call it universe, universal energy, force, or even prana, to forget those negative feelings that life experiences or religious studies have led us to associate with that term. So let's talk about what that positive presence is, without mentioning that term, which was sullied by religious people themselves. Does He exist? Let's start from the principle that the universe exists. And it's not a man or a woman, it's not an old man with a beard who judges and condemns us, but it's the universe. It has no sex because it is all. The universe has a body and a mind, so it has a material appearance and a very large consciousness. We already know the physical body of the universe more or less. It is all that surrounds us, all the planets, the galaxies. Our planet is part of it. We ourselves are part of the universe because we compose it. The universe, besides having a physical body, also possesses a very large and elevated consciousness, extremely strong and positive. Try to think of the purest and most positive vibration that exists in the universe, the most lovely, positive, life-loving, and protective presence. That's what it is. It's the consciousness of the universe. The prana, which we breathe and allows us to live, is the energy of the universe, the brightest and purest energy that allows us to get closer to the understanding of what the universal consciousness really is. Something that for millions of years has been making us feel itself. Across the ages, religion has taken control over people, forcing us to believe in a version of God that is quite different from what the true divinities, including Jesus, had taught about Him. Religious people cannot understand what God is, so they humanize Him, associating Him with human feelings and features that He doesn't have. Therefore, we were led to believe that God was more or less a slightly older human being who watches us from heaven, spying all day long not to help, but to judge us. If we make a mistake, He is there to punish us. If we have a nice, happy day, He is there to judge and make us feel guilty for being happy, while there are people suffering in this world. God is not all this. He is not even remotely like a human being, let alone harboring our low feelings. Therefore, if you associate God with all those wrong definitions, it's normal that you end up believing God does not exist, it's just a human invention, because in fact, you're right. The humanized God does not exist. That is only an invention to keep the weakest minds tamed in the name of faith. What really exists is the universe, which has a physical body and a consciousness, which is conscious of our existence. The universe exists, there is no doubt about that. But what the greatest physics masters have been trying to explain to humans across the ages is that the universe has a consciousness, which is aware of our existence. Then, the inexperienced human tries to theorize this term, overthinking and associating it with all his obsessions. But those who have experience, those who have a real personal experience with this presence, they know that it is very different from any human structure and human idea we may have. We live inside the universe, we are part of it, we compose it. And although we are not the only component, nor the most important, we are just as fundamental as any other planet and living being inside of it. We are very important in the eyes of the universe. Not the most important, nor the least important. The universe is a bit like our physical body. We are made up of billions of cells, and each one is very important because it composes us. If they were not there, we wouldn't exist. Our cells compose our organs and the rest of our body parts, which are all very important for us. None of these parts is more important or less important for our body, because all of them, in our eyes, are fundamental. Even though you know you could live without a kidney, since your kidneys are working perfectly now, why would you decide to remove one? It would be unthinkable, because even though we know that we could potentially live without a kidney, we really don't want to take one off only to find out if we live well or not. So we know that if the kidney gets sick and we are forced to remove it, we could even live without it. But without a kidney, would it really be the exact same thing as having two? Of course not. That is why we would never give up a part of our body if it wasn't really necessary to save our lives. In case we need to decide whether to remove a sick part of the body to save our lives, then we will decide to remove that part. But if it is not sick and it's working perfectly, why would we ever give up that organ? The answer is the same for which the universe has never given up on planet Earth, and consequently on Earthlings, because we, as humans, are as fundamental to its body as our kidneys, legs, hands, and any part of our body are fundamental to us. If Earth's life ended, the universe would still survive, but it would not be the same, just as we could survive without a hand or our spleen, but it wouldn't be the same thing. Consequently, the universe cares a lot about planet Earth and about us for its own interest, because even though it could survive very well without us, it prefers us to live and be well. Moreover, planet Earth would not be the same without us, because it would be missing a fundamental part of its existence. We are not just ants walking on Earth's soil. We are consciousnesses that evolve and make the Earth's consciousness evolve through us. We are much more important than what the others, those who try to control and belittle us, want to make us believe. This is not to be interpreted as a selfish thought, as if the universe cared about us just because we are part of it. It would be much more selfish to think that the whole universe thought only and exclusively of us, not caring about all the other living beings that exist. It's interested in everyone, not just in us, but it doesn't even exclude us from its mind. When a part of your body hurts, for example an important organ, you don't get angry with it and you don't blame it for the pain you feel, but you worry about it. You try to improve your lifestyle and habits, such as eating, to help that organ recover and improve itself. So you do not blame the organ for making you suffer. You do not punish or judge it, but you do everything you can to make it feel better, worrying about that pain which was a warning, as it could be the beginning of a worse problem. Obviously, the organ will not get offended if you are doing all this for yourself to stop feeling that pain, because the organ doesn't care why you do it. It only cares about being well and not getting sick. This is what, in short, the universe does with us. It doesn't punish or judge us when we feel bad or make mistakes, but it tries to help us solve that problem to make us feel good. However, this is only a brief summary of what the universe does to us, because it is much more than that. It is that positive presence that we felt sometimes in our lives, but probably didn't recognize as such, since the term God had always been explained to us differently from what it really is. So we have created an idea about God that doesn't exist to leave out the presence that does exist and that we have felt sometimes. There were very painful moments in your life when you invoked and prayed to Him in a human and religious way, and yet you felt like there was something really getting close to you to accept your prayers. Other times, however, it didn't occur, and on these occasions you preferred to think that God didn't exist or that He wasn't good instead of understanding that the mistake was yours, or rather in your way of communicating with Him, because no one has ever showed you the real, right way to do so. Religion doesn't teach us how to communicate with God, and there's no way they teach us because this is not their interest. Religion has been manipulated to make us believe that without an intermediary, the priest for the Catholics, we cannot reach God. In other words, religion forces us to believe that we are no one, so we cannot communicate with God, and that the only way to get to Him is to ask for permission through the church in our city, to which we give our money, that will introduce us to His grace. So religion makes us believe that if we don't go to church, we can communicate with God directly from our home, that if we are not baptized by the priest, we won't even be taken into consideration by God, and many other lies about which the true God doesn't care at all. These ideas were imposed on us by those people who took advantage of our weaknesses to make money at our expense. But God doesn't want this. The true God, the one that has never been explained to us neither in school nor in religion textbooks, is a presence that is naturally present in and around us. We compose Him, and at the same time He composes us. But it's clear that the expression God is within us, to find Him we need to look inside of us, leaves us with more questions than answers, which is not a good thing. So the real way to find Him and communicate with Him is not to pray or speak, since the universe doesn't understand human words. We can communicate with God through precise techniques such as, in the first place, meditation, which is the basis of the universal language. Then, we can talk about how to learn step by step the rest of the universal language to communicate with Him. If it was easy to explain in 2 pages what God is, it wouldn't have been necessary to write a whole book about it, in which I described all those personal experiences that allowed me to understand His existence, His power, and how truly loving He would be towards us if only we decided to summon Him. In fact, God is like prana, or rather, prana is part of God. It has always existed, but until you decide to meditate on the pranic breathing, it doesn't get close to you, nor fills you up inside. As prana must be summoned through practice, also God must be recalled, so that He can be part of your life and help you face your difficult moments, but not only that. In fact, not only can He help us in moments of fear and difficulty, but also in our happy moments, improving them and making them last even longer. That is why God is not a man who judges or punishes us. Those are just the ideas we made of Him. He is something much greater and much more intelligent that the human mind cannot understand with its logic, since the universe and life don't follow our human logic, let alone the logic of those who have no knowledge nor experience of it. The universe follows its instinctiveness, creates and gives life to what it wants, and only afterwards we, as humans, try to explain these events with rationality. Let's be clear, the opposite never occurs. We should understand that God doesn't follow our ideas, but His own instinctive and positive choices, which we can try to understand through experience and direct communication with Him. Without a direct communication, we would just endlessly invent other theories, never approaching the truth. He is the most positive thing that exists in this universe, since He Himself is the consciousness of this universe. He has known us for a long time, as this is not the first life for many of us. Even if we don't remember who we are, and we don't know why we're here, He knows us and recognizes us from time to time because He is an extremely intelligent and evolved consciousness. It doesn't matter if you want to call it universe, cosmic energy, force, or any of the other words you'd rather use to avoid the term God. What really matters is that you connect to Him and understand how important it is to know the truth about Him. A truth that has been tarnished and completely overturned to keep us far away from the awakening. Knowing God allows us to awaken and emerge from the huge illusion that suffocates us. The universe is not routine, it's not chaos, nor daily suffering. The universe is the most positive essence that exists, the highest vibration, the most loving presence that will allow you to understand how He is everything you have always been looking for, if only you let Him enter your life. What you have always been looking for is that positive presence in your life that fills you up with strength when you're feeling weak and makes you feel comfortable even when you're facing the hardest unknown trials. What you're looking for is that essence which makes you realize who you are, why you're here, and what you need to do to feel truly useful, satisfied, fulfilled. If you let Him be there for you, He can make you feel important to this world, even when everyone around you is trying to make you feel like a burden. He knows who you are, so He can help you remember the truth about yourself. You have maybe refused to name Him because of the negative associations you probably got used to, and that's okay because it doesn't matter how you call Him. What really counts is that you find Him. His kindness characterizes His presence because when you know His true identity, you realize that it's never accompanied by negative feelings nor actions such as punishing or judging, because He is not what sanctimonious people define. The universe just wants to live and expand, and to do so, it gives life and continues to protect what already exists. But if the universe is so busy protecting life, it means that something is constantly trying to get in the way of it, and that is the darkness. Of course, we are not talking about the devil, which is just a representation of a demon and not the representation of the true darkness, that is also very different from what the religion taught us. What hurts, what causes pain or suffering events, isn't God for sure. This is the darkness, a completely different presence which is detached from God. The most misguided idea that people can get is to associate God with darkness as if they were two sides of the same coin, but this theory is very far from the truth. God is a kind of presence, while the darkness is a totally different one. When you suffer, when you feel abandoned, it's not God punishing you. It's the darkness that is hidden you. Blaming God for our sufferings is wrong because He is not the cause. The darkness is the only one guilty of our bad experiences and sad moments. God is fighting the darkness to keep it away from us, but it's not as easy as we think. In fact, the darkness strikes us so many times during our lives, proving that there is a psychic war going on, much bigger than we can imagine. To make things worse, we humans continue to go against God, also blaming Him for our sufferings, as if He did not have enough difficulties to face during His battle against the darkness. But even these beliefs, which make us think that God has nothing to do all day long except serving us from heaven and judging every action or word we say, come from religious indoctrination. One way or another, we were led to believe that God has nothing to do but punish, watch, and judge us all the time. The truth about God is very far from any religion. None of them told the absolute truth about Him, and this is not a coincidence. Religions were decided by some individuals who exploited people's faith to tame them by this power. If we look at history with attentive eyes, we realize how many people for centuries revealed how religions were already corrupted and designed to keep us tied. God is not interested in money, but some people are so blinded by it that they decide to completely distance the others from the truth and from their evolution. The power over human minds is something very dark, which we have naively underestimated for all our lives, thus ignoring the barriers of ignorance. In other words, We preferred to believe the religious version about God instead of listening to our true instincts that would allow us to know the truth, or even worse, we believed that God did not exist because of the way He was described by our religion. Now we have the possibility to listen to our instinct through meditation and sense the true presence of God, no matter which term we use to identify Him. If the term God still makes you think too much of the humanized God, then call it universe or whatever you like. But listen to your heart chakra and connect to Him through meditation, because this is the only way to discover the truth about Him. This is just a brief introduction, which is not enough to explain what God really is, but it helps you understand that His world is much larger than what you previously believed. For this reason, we will deal with this concept again and periodically, not only in theory, but also through guided techniques that will allow you, if you wish, to practice the connection to God so that you can feel Him and perceive His presence in your own experience. The path I'm teaching you through this academy is not God-centered, so even if you decide you don't want to know anything about Him, it won't be a problem. You can continue your journey in ACD, omitting this topic as long as you want. If, on the other hand, you wish to deepen this topic, practicing the techniques to find out more about His existence personally, your thirst for knowledge will be satisfied. Of course, if you don't want to wait and you're in a hurry to learn more, you can find many answers in my book, Does God Exist? Yes, and He knows who you are, but you don't know who He is. This book is currently available only in Italian. Now that you've learned, albeit briefly, my definition of God, we can continue with the main topics of this first step, because each of them is extremely connected to the other, so that together they amplify each other. In the next articles, we will explore chakras, thought, meditation, and then we will discover new topics that we haven't mentioned yet, which will help you find some answers to your bigger questions. Keep on reading, and remember to leave a comment below to let us know your appreciation. To learn more about us, you can visit our website dimensionalconsciousnessacademy.com. See you soon.